Welcome, regions. This is Web3 Roots Podcast, a space to explore the hearts and minds of regions all over the world. What are the views, motivations, and influences of founders and contributors in the Web3 space? What are the ideas shaping their actions? Let's take a deeper dive into their whys and get to the roots. Welcome, folks, to another episode of Web3 Roots Podcast, where we explore the hearts and minds of regions and we explore the roots of the blockchain. Today, we have a really interesting topic. But first, I'm going to introduce to you Claudio, my co-host. How are you, Claudio?
I'm good. I'm very good. It's been a long, hot day. I wasn't expecting so much heat today, but I'm very happy about it, of course. There's climate crisis going back in the head always, but overall, trying to enjoy the bit of spring that is going now in the Netherlands, where I am very briefly stationed at. What about you?
Well, I have to say that here in Caracas is very, very hot. I'm talking about climate change. We are in drought season and it's been really hot. I mean, beautiful sunny days, but really, really hot. So hopefully we'll get some rain soon. I'm looking forward to our topic today, which is a topic, one of the first topics actually in which you and I engaged. So can you tell us today what it is?
Yeah. It's a word that we came across a couple of months ago that kind of opposes the way we think about technologies as a concept, technologies as this framework under we tend to gather blockchain technologies, AI technologies, and everything. It's this word called tequiologies, that has been proposed by a Mexican academic researcher, Yasnaya Aguilar. Um, where basically her thesis, following an ancient Nahuatl language, is to use tequios, the word tequios, which describes basically systems and technologies that rather than focus on these tools that can then dominate the nature around them and the animals and all the dynamics between humans and their surrounding, therefore focuses in contrasts on technologies that actually potentiate all the collaborations, all the community sense of it, and in the end, the public goods in a way. Is this word that has been used for now millennia, literally, and it's rather than describe a specific technology, is this different framework, this different way of looking at the relationships that we develop with our surroundings. So for her following her thesis, of course, very debatable, very challenging, is that we are now in this world that basically can be described by capitalism, by colonialism, by patriarchy, by this kind of divorce between the human and the natural that we can trace back to this relationship that we have between how we um, make the relationship with our surroundings. So for her, she proposes tequios and therefore tequiologies to trace a little bit how these indigenous cultures, specifically the Nahuatl in Mesoamerica, in Mexico, look and thoughts about their environment and how they were focusing on collaboration and to get in the right relationship with the world around them. So we found it very interesting because it kind of challenges what we've been told, what we've been taught, and what we understand when we hear and listen about technology. And it's this very like wordplay where it's like basically similar in terms of like technology versus tequiology, but it's another complete framework, way to see the world, and so on. It introduces also a lot about like indigenous cultures and what we can bring to the table and start like rethinking our own relationships. So we thought it was gonna be a great idea to bring this to this podcast and dive a little deeper into how we understand this, what is actually behind it, and how we can maybe introduce these new words and these new perspectives to our daily days. So that's kind of a bit of the background of it.
Yeah, good introduction to our topic today. And I love that we're touching this topic today. I have to say it's very delightful to hear Yasnaya and to get to know about her work. And I love that she's bringing to the table all of these indigenous wisdom. And she's not only changing that perspective about technology, um, but also about native people being detached from innovation or, being deemed as primitive. Um, I love that she acknowledged that, or she brings to the table that these are contemporary societies. Um, Sometimes people have this idea of that native people are come from the past, are a thing from the past, or come from the tradition, and they are detached from innovation or detached from technology, and that sometimes uh, gives this idea of these people being less advanced in a way. So she is also trying to bring that to the table. Um, so, what is technology? At the end of the day, technology is a way in which we relate to our surrounding, a way uh, for us to relate to nature, the tools that we use to relate to nature and to our environment, to our ecosystem, and it's an embodiment of our creativity, of our knowledge and our different tools. So why um, think that there's only uh, a, one technology? This concept that there is a monotechnology, and that some cultures or some societies are more developed than others. Um, it's brought to the table in the um, in the proposal that she's doing when she proposes this mix between the word tequio and the word technology. And yeah, Tequio is a social tech of common work from her community, and she's bringing that out of her community because it is a tool that will serve everyone to view technology as a way for collaboration and enhance collaboration and community and common good over competition.
So maybe my next question is like, okay, we have this framework, we can follow her work, but we are supposedly in a podcast that is touching upon the Web3 space. So how can we use this and bring it a bit closer from the ideas and so on to what we are trying to look upon and focus, which basically we decided to focus on the refi space, all the regen stuff. Why should we be like introducing these concepts?
I think that something very valuable about this concept is the realization that we are part of nature, that we are not, as humans, divorced from nature, or yeah, the human and nature are not detached from each other. Um, so what this concept brings um, up front is how do we use technology in a way that is not extractive, that it's not to dominate nature, and not to promote extractive systems, which would be game A as we know it today. So what she's basically is proposing is how do we play game B, um, bringing these ancient knowledge and ancient ways of doing things to these modern day, to these to the relationship that we have today with technology, right? So yeah, I think that relates a lot with Web3. That I think it's a technology for promoting collaboration over competition. You know, very Aquarius era, and all about community, looking out for each other and sharing values and goals. And yeah, I think that that can only happen when we have less extractive systems, and when we promote community, and yes, promote collaboration. So I think it's very valuable to bring that ancient knowledge to the technology as we know it today.
I need to ask you now. You've worked and you've been in contact for a load of time now, a couple of years, with the local indigenous community in Venezuela. Me personally, coming from Chile, there's a lot of indigenous communities, being the Mapuche or the guys in the north, in the south, but I haven't been that much in touch. I confess I'm kind of a city boy. I was born and raised in Santiago, which is like 7 million big city. 7 million big city. Yeah, I was right. So even though we were learning at school and so on, and I have been able to be in contact, not that much. So I would like to ask you, how has been your experience and all this contact that you have been having directly? You've worked a lot with them, so yeah, starting with that, maybe you can also introduce us to this kind of things that you have seen that have kind of resonate with tequiologies, maybe, or if not also.
Yes, I've been in touch with the native community, specifically the Wotoja community here in Venezuela. And for sure, they have a different way to relate to their surroundings, to relate to the environment, and it's so different. It's radically different. How you feel, even the energy changes when you are over there. Because we are here in the cities, we are very used to the fast pace of everything, and you know mm, this mindset, so to speak, of exponential growth without purpose or without meaning, and you know, just doing stuff nonstop, and this mindset of having more and more and more, but with no meaning, you know, which would be, as I was saying, game A. So when we have the opportunity to visit these people and see how they live, and see how you know, I still find so ironic how we keep, and well, I mean, we in a very rhetoric way, of course, but we keep like deeming them for primitive societies, you know, when they are societies that have learned to have a relationship with the environment, with nature, something that we haven't. We keep having this mindset of, you know, keep on, um, uh, you know, our resources are finite, but we keep thinking on this exponential growth, and that is what has put us here, in this the system as we know it right now, and all the even the climate change emergency. So what that has given me is the view that we can. It is possible to return to these roots or these foundations, to start playing game B, and just to develop in a way of living that honors nature, honors our surroundings, and that actually helps regenerate it, and that does no harm, and also that promotes well-being. I think that's important. So these people have such a profound relationship with nature, um, that also gives them, how would I put it, a very profound philosophy, a very profound, um, yes, a whole different approach to life.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I want to pull up now the example that Yasnaya uses to exemplify how these techiologies has actually been going on. On the one hand, technologies, we have agriculture, we have all the crazy monoculture, transnational monoculture, which basically leads to deforestations and yada yada yada. And what she brings to the table is this concept of milpas, which are a different way of food crops that has been going on in Central America for millennia now, which basically, rather than it's a different way and like a very variated kind of forests and crops and so on, all in the same place. They do it for 2 years and they then let it rest for 8 years, and that's kind of a very raw and vague approach of the technique. But what I really like about this, and I'm gonna pull out now a quote, is how one thing is the technique and the other thing is the actual socio-cultural approach that this brings to the table. I'm now quote unquote, it's not only like simply a system of agriculture, it actually involves a complex set of interactions and relationship between farmers, as well as distinct personal relationship with both the crops and the lands. It has been noted that the making of milpa is the central, most sacred act, one which binds together the family, the community, the universe. It forms the core institution of Indian society in Mesoamerica, and its religious and social importance often appears to exceed its nutritional and economic importance. So I really find like interesting this quote in terms of how sometimes all the values, we just want to eat the food, we just want to get it fast, we just want to like get it out of the way. But when we talk about meal pass, when we actually focus a bit more on how this is produced, then you can get a bit of a grasp of the deep, profound relationships that are behind this. And then we are talking again about tequiologies, and how can this then make us think in a different way. So I find this like very inspiring, but also very challenging. And like, I don't know, the word naive at some point comes to my mind immediately. It's like me from my Western city boy upbringing. It's like, okay, but we really need to feed a lot of people. So can we actually use techiologies to like make it a viable way up to this day? How can we do it? How is it? Is just a framework, or is it actually a path forward? So that's actually something that conflictuates me, and then leads us to another concept that I want to ask you a bit, which is, you mentioned it previously on this conversation, the radical indigenism, which I don't know much about it. So I would really like to, for you to explain it a bit, and that we can, yeah, jam a bit and see where that leads us. Hey everyone, Claudio here, co-host of the Web3 Roots podcast. Thank you for joining us in this journey. If you like what we're doing, consider supporting our content on social media and spread the word with your friends. Follow us on Blockchain Solidarity Pod to keep you updated on all the podcasts being crafted by this collective. You'll find all the links in the description below. And now let's get back to the chat.
Yeah, I love that Yasnaya in this talk that we are mentioning or that we are referencing, she takes this knowledge out of her community and she brings it out here. So I think she's doing the first step and a very important step. Will that work? We don't know, but we have to take the first step, you know. So it's about that. It's about keep on pollinating, I guess. And also she mentioned something that I think is really valuable and very beautiful. That talking about meal pass, she was explaining how the how food has become also a part of marketing, and that has made that we start to use all these fertilizers in the food industry and all that stuff. And there are communities in which they have improved their how you call it, their plantations by just something as simple as selecting the seeds, and she brings this to the table because she says that that's a knowledge that cannot be privatized, and this is in a way why she's promoting this technology, this tequiology, which would be technology but used for the good of the community, the good of the land, and for collaboration, as we already said. And that knowledge, or that having that profound relationship to nature, is what is going to take us out of these extractive systems and of having technology to or at the service of just the market or capitalism. And it's just having that profound relationship with nature, that's knowledge that cannot be privatized. You cannot privatize how to pick seeds. So this is something very valuable that she brings to the table. And I think to answer to your question, or at least to try to answer to your question, will this be possible? Well, at least we got to try. So she's doing the first step, I think. And this brings to mind a concept that was brought up by researcher Eva Marie Garut. Of course, I'm destroying her name, so sorry. But she uses the term radical indigenism to describe this curiosity or this interest into studying these indigenous peoples and indigenous cultures to you know, to add this knowledge system, to add this knowledge to shape our own discourses, and to incorporate that into how we design and how do we live today. Of course, to create a more sustainable way of life, and also to actually do something good for the climate. And this is something that I'm seeing in my surroundings, and I'm speaking specifically about Venezuela. I'm seeing, in a way, this renewed interest, so to speak, about our indigenous cultures. We in Venezuela have a very, very rich indigenous history and indigenous background that I think um, we have not always paid attention to it. And I've come across with young people wanting to know about their roots, wanting to know about this native philosophy. And yeah, I think that we are learning to, in a way, look back to our origins or look to our roots, to bring that to today. And no wonder why these native people have thrived for as long as they have. I think they have managed to have this symbiotic relationship with nature.
Yeah, yep. I have to definitely check out the work of Eva Marie. I have not come across her, but all that we've been discussing, it's made me think of the work also of Yuk Hui. He's originally from Hong Kong, philosopher, and he's been writing a lot about techno diversity, another concept that basically aims for the same. How can we integrate? He does profound studies on Asian cultures, specifically Chinese and Hindu. I don't remember what's the proper English word, but yeah, it's kind of in the same direction. So we have a big corpus of not only like Yasnaya presenting tequiologies or Eva presenting radical indigenism. We have all this. Then we have Yukhui, and I guess what we were trying to aim with these episodes was just a very brief introduction to actually question a bit our roots, where we come from, which are the different and diverse ways of looking at the world that we would try to introduce. And yeah, I think that being said, our pledge now would be to actually bring someone that knows much more on this field and proper sit down and ask all the questions and go a bit deeper. So that being said, I think that just maybe as a closing thought, for me the most interesting bit of everything, not of everything, but of this chapter is also the challenging in terms of like the words we start using and the language, and how this can then end up like molding all of our relationships, and how if we start like looking closer and closer and closer, we end up like noticing how biased it can be, how like inaccurate, and how harmful in different ways we can end up with the choices of our words. So for me, Tequiologies also speaks of, on one word, the introduction of indigenous cultures, which is something that we definitely want to explore throughout this podcast, thinking, of course, in like blockchain technologies and the whole culture and philosophy behind them, but also the importance of words, language, and how we are actually in a moment, in a very like nascent moment in time and space where we can challenge the words we are now using and starting to repeat and repeat and repeat forever. One example, just to like stop talking now, is the network state by Balayis, that it has been like adopted by a lot of big organizations, starting with, for instance, like RefiDAO, but there's also a lot of criticism going on in how these like network states actually relate a lot to colonialist practices, and you can like trace them down and see how this very beautiful sounding corpus of work then aims to the same old not so good stories. So for me, Tequiologies also is a very interesting way to look at the words that we are using. So that would be kind of my wrapping up personally. Vane, I invite you to also make your just to like, yeah, wrap your thoughts about this, and we can close this episode today, these new formats with these new words and new ways of looking at the world.
Sure. I'm loving it. I'm loving this new dynamic, and this is a great topic. Um, and well, at least a topic that is very interesting to me personally. And yeah, to wrap up, I think that it's about starting to, or not starting, to keep on asking ourselves, how do we have a use of technology that does not serve to domination, that does not serve to just exponential growth and, you know, just draining the earth and draining ourselves, and how do we use it to actually nurture nature and to nurture ourselves. And I think that comes from, or that will come from the realization that we are part of nature, that we are not separate. So how can we have a more organic ways of life? I think that's something to ask ourselves within Web3, and about what you were saying about kind of not walking your talk. I think that um, actually we have to use technology to have an actual impact. We talk a lot and we do a lot in the space, and inside of this sort of floating nation or no nation, and how do we make an impact with these technologies, but in real life? How do we have local impact? How do we regenerate the earth? I think that's the question that we have to ask ourselves, because planet Earth is where we live in. And so I think the impact has to be done there, in real life, in the communities, to actual humans. So yeah, I that's something that I want to keep in mind for, to close today's topic, to remember that we're part of nature, and start to live in a more symbiotic way with nature. So that's what I take out, or what I want to keep in mind to conclude this conversation.
Great, 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 great. I resonate a lot, and yeah, I wanted to thank you for this conversation. Very inspiring, as per usual. And also thank everyone that is around listening to us still, of course. We're gonna be doing more interviews, maybe more of this format. So please keep your eyes peeled, not only for this podcast, but with everything that's going on with the blockchain solidarity collective. So without further ado, we'll leave you to it. Have a great afternoon, morning, night, wherever you are. And see you around, guys. A big hug from the Web3 Roots podcast. And the best, all the best, all the love.
Yes, see you next time. Thank you. Much love. Bye bye.